everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's walkthrough of the slot request on STEPS version 3. My name is Rocio Ramirez, and I am the Digital Content and Client Training Specialist here at Exact. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, please add your questions in the questions box. We'll be pausing periodically to ensure your questions are answered. As usual, feel free to download today's presentation to follow along or keep as a reference. You can find that in the handout section. You will see that there's actually two handouts in the handout section. It's today's presentation along with an additional resource on a specific topic we'll be covering today. This webinar will be recorded and shared with you via email 1 hour after the webinar ends and will also be made available on our YouTube channel. And we're going to give everyone just a few more minutes to let everyone get logged on and get their audio sorted. We'll give it about 1 to 2 minutes and we'll be back with you in just a few moments. All right, and without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started. I did have a question here from Shonda about whether she was supposed to be hearing anyone. I just want to get confirmation from someone else in the audience if everyone is able to hear me okay before we proceed with the presentation. Perfect. Thank you so much, Faith. All right. Awesome. Thank you, folks. All right. So let's go ahead and get started. So today's presentation is on the slot request walkthrough. So just a quick agenda here to kind of get us sorted. We're first going to talk a bit about a quick overview of what the slot request process looks like. What are some of the things you might want to do before you actually start configuring your slot requests and scheduling your emails. Then we're going to dive into setting up your configuration of the slot request. So setting up your preferences, making sure your slot request looks the way you want it to once it goes out on March 1st. After that, we'll dive into the process of actually sending those emails or scheduling them to be sent throughout our system. And then last but not least, once your emails are sent, what are some of the things that you want to look out for? Maybe we'll discuss, I think, our next webinar as well. So just what comes after you are all set to go with the slot request process. Perfect. Awesome. All right. So let's go ahead and dive into the overview. All right, so I think most of us on the webinar are very familiar with the slot request and what the intent of the slot request is, and that is to request slot availability from your clinical partners to see if they will take students for a particular rotation that are coming up for you in the next calendar year, or any rotation for that matter. But what we wanted to talk a little bit about was some of the different things that each of the programs that we work with have been doing, or some of the trends that we've been seeing, and kind of bring that awareness to everyone on the webinar to, just kind of bring that up and see if that's something you're interested in, or just so that you're aware of the capabilities in the system that are available to you. So something that we are calling the standard slot request is basically you just sending out a blast email to all of your active sites. It's very common. You basically say, anyone I have a contract with, I want to send them an email, let them know that this is my schedule and if they can give me anything back. So that's really the standard slot request process that we've come to know that a large majority of our the programs we work with utilize. We have also seen some of our programs have started to target sites and who they contact by different criteria. So some of our programs will say, well, we're trying to target specific sites who we know they'll give us, slots for our last rotation for some of our students that are close to graduating, or they give us just outpatient slots, specifically by setting. Some of our other programs will actually say, well, geographically, I know my students want to go to this state or this city or this area. And so they'll categorize their sites using this information and then send out a slot request to those specific groups of sites to be able to just get a better return on their slot request, which is still all part of the slot request process of that standard slot request configuration, but that's something that we've seen. Another thing that we've seen that's kind of a little bit more up and coming, a little bit more prominent, is that programs have started to take student interest into consideration when they're sending out their slot requests. So they'll usually say to their students, they'll collect information from their students and say, where would you like to go for a placement? And once they have that information, they'll go ahead and contact those specific sites and say, hey, can you take John for their second rotation that is happening on these dates? And the site would then say yes or no, and you'd move forward with the placement process. So this is something that's been gathering a lot of interest. A lot of our programs have been kind of bringing this up, and in version 3, we actually do have a way to manage that. So we'd like to show you that as well today in this webinar. But before we actually dive into what these processes look like, I wanted to run a quick poll just to see what our audience is doing in terms of their slot request. So I do have a poll here. Let me go ahead and open that up. Let's see. And this is just to see what everyone is doing so that people on the call, we've gotten some feedback that users like to know what other programs are doing. So that way, they get an idea of what's going on around them. So just pulling up that poll here, so feel free to answer. And the question is, do you target your slot requests in any way? And you have a few options there. So it looks like about 50, 60% have voted. We'll give it a few more seconds here. Okay, it looks like we're getting close to that 80% mark there. We'll give it a bit more here. All right. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and close the poll here, and then I will share the results with you folks. So it looks like a good chunk of users are just sending out, again, that general email to all active sites, and it looks like there's some percentage of you guys using that general mailing with the student-specific requests. Some of you just focusing on those student-specific requests and using those site categories. Awesome. It looks like there's no one that chose that last option there, but I want to just give a few more minutes here if anyone would like to maybe speak to the specific method that they're using for their slot requests, if they like to speak on what their program is doing or give some insight. You guys are more than welcome to raise your hands and I can unmute you and you can share that with the rest of the group. If you're feeling brave here, I'm just going to check the attendees list to see if anyone would like to share. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and close the poll then and hide the results. It looks like we have no volunteers to share, which is totally fine. So let's go ahead and hide those results here. And then we're going to go ahead and keep on moving along with the presentation here. All right, so looking at that standard slot request, what does it look like when it goes out on March 1st? What do your sites see and how do they go about that process? So this is what your sites will see. So once that email is sent, your sites will receive an email. And of course, you get to curate and customize this email with the verbiage that you'd like to see there. But it will contain a link. Ooh, I went by that too fast. It will contain a link there that they will click on. And once they do, they'll be redirected to Exact. And this is the page that will then give them all of the information they need. You'll find some information here such as some general instructions, which you can, of course, utilize and craft to your liking. We do have standard messaging that you can include as well. You will have a place here for to include a message from your program to the site. So if you'd like to reiterate some of the content from your email, maybe just give them some instructions, some guidelines, additional information, that's a good place to do that. You can, of course, include attachments. So if you'd like to share some CI benefits, a paper slot request form, anything of that nature, you can, of course, add that in there so they can easily access that. You can include a due date for the slot request, and this isn't a specifically, it's not a hard deadline, meaning that after April 28th, they wouldn't be able to offer slots, but it just kind of gives them a time frame of, kind of letting them know you'd like to hear back by that date. You can, of course, include contact information if they have questions or concerns, if they face any technical difficulties, who they can reach out to. And then as they scroll through the slot requests, they will then be, they can then see the sites that they are associated with, and they can then either offer slots, say they are not, they're not able to offer you anything for that year, but that's what they'll see there. They can, of course, provide slots for locations they are not associated with. So let's say they have 3 sites listed here, but they have a 4th location that they'd like to give you or they don't see there. They can, of course, add that location. If you set it up this way, you can allow them to update site information during this point in the process. They will always be able to see the full schedule of all the sessions you are including in your slot request here at the bottom of the page. Any additional information you'd like to include, that's just another place for you to add details there for them to see. And of course, once they are done with this process of just kind of reviewing that main page, they're going to dive into actually either offering slots, saying maybe later, saying I have nothing to offer. These options are customizable as well. But if they are offering slots, they'll be taken to another page where they will see each of your sessions. They can then add slots. They can say, I'm offering a slot in this particular setting for this number of students. I know it's going to be a 1 student to 1 CI ratio. Is it a first come, first served? Is it an interview required type of slot? Any notes that they'd like to share with you, all of that information will be here as they add those slots. Once they've added all of their slots, they then return to the previous page and they will see any of their slots listed here for that particular site. And then to wrap up the process, the site does have to review and confirm their slots. So they'll go ahead and press on that, click here to review and confirm. They'll be taken to a page where they can see all of their responses, whether they've offered slots, they've requested to be called later, they have nothing to offer. They'll see all of that here for each site, and they'll then confirm. And they'll be done with the process. So that's how it looks like for your clinical partners in terms of the slot request. And I know that we talked a little bit about that student-specific slot request where you actually share student information with the site. The process is relatively the same. The only difference is that before they actually get to the slot request, they will see this page here. And this all depends on how many student requests that particular site received. But if you are planning or wanting to use that feature, this page will show up first. The site will see obviously their site names here, which student is interested in that particular location, for what setting, for what dates, and they can then approve or reject the offer. And once they're all done approving and rejecting those offers, they then proceed to the slot request, which then takes them to that same set of screens we just saw on the previous slide. So it's just a 1-step added to this process, very easy for the sites to approve or reject specific student requests. All right. Okay. So moving on from what your sites will see to some of the things you may want to take into consideration or make sure you take care of before, early on when you are starting to set up your slot request is some of the things we recommend is to create all of the sessions that you will include in your mailing. This won't stop you from getting started in terms of building your slot request, but it makes it much easier. You don't have to go back later to, go ahead and reselect or select the newly sessions that you've added. So if you do create those beforehand, makes it a breeze to get by. Of course, cloning sessions will save you lots of time. It lets you copy over content from previous sessions that you use. So if you have a specific set of session activities that you use every time, that kind of will save you some time and expedite the process for you. And you, of course, create sessions by going to placements, and then you go into, let's see here, by session, and then you go ahead and click on add session, and that will give you the option to either create a brand new session or a clone, which is just copying over the structure of a previously created session. All right, some of the common issues that our users run into is that you may have to create a session for an incoming cohort that is not in your database yet. If that's an issue, very quick and easy fix for that, you can add the folder that will house all of those students in the system. So it allows you to create the session. It'll have that label of the class of 2025 or whatever that class name is, even if you don't have student names yet. And you can do that by going into configuration and within student batch. Another thing that tends to happen is that the calendar year may not show up for you. Let's say you have to create a session for year 2025 or 2024, and that year doesn't show up for you in this dropdown. There is a way to fix that as well, and we're going to show you guys where you can do both of these actually. One thing before we navigate away from this page is that there is going to be this question here, show on slot request form. So as you build your sessions, make sure that that is set to yes. It just indicates that when you are building a slot request, do you want this session to be listed on your slot request to select from? And we do, since these are future sessions that you're building, you definitely want those to show up for you. So just make sure that's set to yes when you're building your new sessions. All right, but to fix those just kind of common issues with the cohort and the calendar year, you're going to go into configuration. And within school configuration, you're going to find student batch, and you'll also find configure calendar year. So on the same box here, you'll have both of those options. And I'll show you what those two screens look like here. So this is a student batch. So this is where your cohorts are listed here. So if you do not have student names yet, you can kind of see how many students are in each of these cohorts. If you have no student names, not a problem. You'll click on add new. That will allow you to build or just create the name for the new class if you don't have information for it yet. Same thing with the calendar year here. So this is just basically adding in the new year that you might need. So if you don't see 2024, 2025, whatever year you need, you'll come in here and click on add new and just select that new year to show up in the system for you. All right. So moving on from some of those kind of technical glitches you might run into, you also want to review your site staff. You want to ensure that there is at least one recipient set to receive your email at each clinical site. Of course, you can have more than one, but the bare minimum, if you do want them to receive your mailing, you want to make sure you have someone set to receive that email. And of course, this only applies to active sites that you plan to contact. So if there are any sites that you don't include, or you send them as another type of contact or don't plan to send it to them, you definitely don't need to worry about them. We do have a specific report to help you review this information, and that's going to be the slot request staff report, which is in reports and the other reports section, which looks a bit like this. And so this report helps you kind of just navigate and see who's receiving your email, who is not. You will have some default filters applied to this report. The first thing is it will only show you active sites, and it will first only show you sites that are included in the slot request, which are just some default filters here. And the columns you want to focus on here is going to be the site staff receiving slot requests. So at this particular, or for this particular site, these are going to be the contacts who receive an email with a link to offer slot availability. You'll also have a column for site staff not receiving the slot request, so you can easily see who's getting it, who is not, do I need to make updates to this information. So for example, at this site here, maybe Jason does need that email. I can easily update that information by clicking on the edit pencil. That'll take me right over to that site's profile in the staff section, and I can then update his mailing preferences. So this just easily lets you see who's getting your email, who is not, And you also have some easy ways of filtering this as well to actually look for additional sets of data that you might want to review. So within the advanced search, we talked about some of those active filters that are going to be on the report. But let's say you have in the past set a few sites to not be included in the slot request. If that's the case, you may want to check those out, just ensure they're still accurate. You can always change that filter within the advanced search. Let's say that you want to review your list of inactive sites to see if anything has changed. Maybe you plan to reach out to them again or try to renew your contract with them to reach out to them. You can always see those list of sites by changing that filter there. And we also have the site staff verification filter. So this filter is really nifty. It actually looks for any sites who have no contacts listed or no staff set to receive your slot request email. So this is going to help you find the gaps. Again, any sites who do not have any staff set to receive the email, you'll select those no contacts listed. It'll quickly filter the list for you. So then you can easily see which sites those are, update that information if needed. All right, I'm not seeing any questions here so far, so we're gonna keep moving along. So let's say that you do have some sites that you'd like to include or exclude after you've reviewed your information. That is an easy thing to do within the system. So if you head on over to clinical sites, and on this search sites page here, you'll then find your site that you'd like to either include or exclude. Once you do, you'll go ahead and select that site. And on that site's profile, you're going to go into the edit information section. And once you get on that page, you're going to scroll all the way towards the bottom of the page in the other configuration section, and you'll find this question here, include this site during slot requests. So sites by default, when they are entered into the system, they're active. This will be set to yes. So the only way that this is set to no is if you as a user go in and change this. So you don't have to worry about having to do this for every single site in your database. But this is just if you've in the past have set someone to not receive your email, or if you would like to set them to not receive these slot requests, you can update that here. All right, let's say you want to update some staff mailing preferences. Let's say you know of a contact who should be receiving it, or you want to check that information. That's going to be within your clinical site section as well. So again, clinical sites here, you'll search for that site. And you're going to then, within the site details or the site profile section, you're going to select the staff section. And once in the staff section, this will list everyone who is a staff at that particular site. You can easily see their settings. Here, this particular icon in the middle is the slot request one. So if it's grayed out, it means they are not receiving your email. If it is blue, then they are receiving that email, and you can then, of course, update that with the pencil icon. And that's going to be that second option there, include staff and annual slot request email. All right, I do have a question here. Can a report be run to find out which sites are included in the slot request? So that's going to be that report, the slot request staff report. I'm going to head back here really quick. Let me see if I can head back there kind of fast. So this is the slot request staff report. So it automatically filters to show you those sites that are included in the slot request. Yes. So this is the report you'll want to take a look at to view that information, Maria. I hope that answers that question. Okay. Awesome. Okay, so let's go ahead and move along. The next thing we're going to talk about is going to be the configuration portion of this. So setting up your slot request. So to set up your slot request, if you were with us in our previous webinar regarding the update site information, this is just kind of some repeat content, but otherwise, to build your slot request, you can either, of course, create a brand new slot request or copy a slot request. And of course, copy is very similar to cloning, which copies over the preferences that you've used for previous slot requests, saving you some time in terms of setting this up. So we're going to head on over on our left menu to slot requests. And once here, we're going to then create a new slot request. You'll then get a pop-up and it'll ask you whether you want to create a brand new slot request or if you'd like to copy an existing one. If you are creating a brand new slot request, if you're a first-time user, then this is the option you'll have to go with. If you're just kind of wanting to try something new and set everything up again from the ground up, then this is pretty straightforward. You'll land on the slot request configuration. You'll create your title and then go through the to-do list to build your configuration. If, however, you would like to copy some of the preferences from a previous slot request, then you'll first be asked which slot request you would like to clone. So here you would then select the slot request, click next, copy that over. If you're not sure what the preferences you had set for each of these, you can always click on the preview icon. And that will then show you a preview of your information here. So you can then kind of go through these different tabs and see, okay, I set this up, I like this one, I can go ahead and clone, or this wasn't the right one, let's close it, look at another one to review before cloning. Elizabeth, I do see here you have a question regarding site staff. I'm not sure if you wanted me to unmute you so that you could ask the question. Let me know if you'd like me to unmute you. Yes, please. Okay, perfect. Let me find you really quick. Here you go. You might have to unmute yourself on your end, but you should be able to speak now, Elizabeth.
Sorry, can you hear me okay now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, and I couldn't get in earlier when we were doing, took me a little bit to get into site staff. I just have a question back to that.
Yeah.
Something we actually reached out to Exact about. So we have parent sites and then we have the sites below them. And
Correct.
when you run that report, that report only looks at the slots below them. At least that's the problem we're having or the question, and it doesn't look at parent sites. And that's where a lot of the requests are made, or through the parent sites, and then they divvy them up to the slots below. So is there a way around that, or is there?
The only thing is that when the slot request goes out, it is sent to sites and not parent sites. In this report, actually, let me go ahead and share my screen so we can take a look at the system really quick. And this report actually shows if a site belongs to a parent site group and let me see here, reports, other reports. If a site belongs to a parent site group, it does show the inheritance on this page. So whatever you have at the parent level, if you have contacts added at that level, it does trickle down to those locations. And it should show up here on this report. So here on this, yeah.
It doesn't, because that was the question, because like in the first one, all sports, as an example,
okay,
it says no site contacts are added.
Right.
So would that be because there's nothing in the parent site that it's not trickling down, or is that?
That would be something we'd have to check on your individual account to see where that's coming from. So here in this particular site, it belongs to this site, but at this level here, there is no one set to receive the slot request email. And I can go into the parent site here, and you can see there's no one added at that parent level. So that's kind of what it's alluding to. So whatever's at the parent level does trickle down into the site. And again, the report will tell you, here we have, I think, a sample Bellevue Clinic. It says inherited from the parent site. So then I can, go into that site, review parent site information, but it's trickling down and the report will tell you that information, but it's not going
Okay,
to
so
list parent site
so
details
it has
here.
to be in the parent site in order to get it into the other sites if you're not entering it individually to the sites.
Correct. Yeah, you can add it at the
Okay.
parent level and it'll trickle down. And, or of course, if it's only pertaining to one location out of the however many are associated with that parent site, then you just do it at that single location.
But it'll trickle down to all of their.
Yes, if you add it at the parent level, yes, it will.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, of course. All right, so once you go ahead, and we were talking about copying existing slot requests, and again, you can kind of preview the slot requests you'd like to copy, review the preferences that you had set previously, and if you're happy with that, you'll then go ahead and clone. Otherwise, you'll look at other ones before you decide to clone. And once you do clone, you'll land on a similar page here where you're going to get to the configuration. You'll give your slot request a title that's for your purposes to kind of just identify the different slot requests you send out. And you're going to have that to-do list to kind of go through. I do have another question here. Do we need to manually remove an SCCE name if they are associated with several sites? Could one SCCE receive many requests instead of one request that covers several sites? So our system will identify users. So if John Smith is associated with like 10 different sites, they will only receive one email. And the email, when they click on that link, it'll show them the 10 locations on that one link. So they won't receive 10 separate emails, they'll just get the one email. Okay, perfect. All right, and so talking about the once we have our slot request built here, so you're going to land on the very first section, which is going to be the basic configuration. So once you either copy or create, the very first thing is you're going to give your slot request a title. And again, this is going to be for your purposes only. Your team or whoever has access to the database, they'll see that title. But it's just for you to know the slot request for, are you sending it for rotations in 2023? Is it 2024 because the sessions are in 2024? Whatever identifying information you'd like to add here, that'll go in the title. And then we're going to dive into that basic configuration of it. So I'm going to actually switch on over to the system because this has a few kind of ifs and buts. So we're going to go ahead and quickly switch on over gears here to show you guys the different options. There's a lot of different options here. Okay, so I have the system loaded here. I'm going to go ahead and over to slot request. So if you're starting from scratch or just haven't built your slot request yet, you'll go ahead and create a new slot request and choose your option there. If you've already started, then you'll go ahead and click on the edit icon here for your existing slot request. All right, and so here's a title of our slot request, and then we have the basic configuration section. So some of these are just kind of standard. You don't want to really change these. If, for example, the slot layout, it's always going to be PTOT for you folks. So you definitely want to leave that as is. Set confirm slots to active, it just means that you may possibly use these slots in the future, and we want to make sure you have that information in the system. So you want to leave that as yes. Allow sites to offer FCFS slots. That's going to be the first come, first served. So if your program does collect or have first come, first served, if you work with those type of slots, you definitely want to mark that as yes. Or if not, you'll change that to no. But basically, when the site is offering slots, here, this is what the site sees. They will essentially have this here, this option. So they can say this is a first come, first serve slot. So if you would like them to have that option, then you'll set that to yes. You also have a question for allow sites to offer first come first served for new locations. So same process, it just if they're offering slots for a location you don't yet have on your database, should they have that option there. And last item related to first come first served is if you would like to include any instructions. These instructions will actually show up as an icon. So back on the site view here, you're going to have this eye icon. As they hover over that, they'll see your instruction there. So if you'd like to just kind of maybe say what FCFS means, or let them know what that means to you, or what kind of information they can expect from you, that will go there. Another option you have is should sites be able to offer interview required slots? And again, for new locations, is that something you also want? So back on the site view here, just to kind of give you guys a view of what that looks like, same concept. Should they be able to indicate this is an interview required? And then of course you'll have a instructions box where you can include some information there for them to view. All right, and then moving on here, we have an option to send requests only to designated group of sites. Now, if you send your site, your slot request to all active sites in your database, then you will leave this as no. You want this to go out to everyone. There's no filtering, there's no categories going on. You just want to reach out to everyone on your system. Then you'll set this as no. However, if you are interested in sending out a slot request specifically to a subset group of sites, you'd set this to yes. And then it'll ask you which groups or categories you'd like to send this to. Now this, if you haven't used before, it will require a bit of setup from your end in terms of working with our support team to get those categories created, and then assign a category for each of those sites that you'd like for them to belong in each category. So he has just some sample categories here in terms of like population, rural setting, and this other details. But this is where your groups of maybe you want to say for rotation 1, rotation 2, maybe you have, again, states, geographical areas, maybe you want to filter by, create a settings list for of categories. This is where you get to build your own list, and support can definitely assist with that. So if you'd like to get categories created, contact support, let them know what those categories should be. And then here you would then say this slot request would be for these particular categories. So then just those sites that are tagged with those categories would receive that email. I'm going to detour just a bit here if there are any folks with us that actually use categories. I do see a question here though. If we allow sites to add additional sites not in our system in the FCFS question, does that entry populate our bank of sites for the future? If so, do we get a notification that a new site was added in our account? Yes. So if you do have new locations, any new location is not added automatically in the database. You are going to get a dashboard widget notification. So once you log in here, I don't have one available, a widget showing here on my system, but it'll look very similar to one of these 3 here, and it says slots for like new locations. And you can then click on that report, decide if you'd like to add that site to your database, and then those slots will be populated into that new site. Because of course, sometimes sites will add new locations that you may already have. So to avoid duplicate entries, you do have to review that information prior to it just showing up in your database. I do see a question here from Maria. I thought that the select group function could also be completed by using the site category section. Yeah, so that's what that is, the site group. I don't know why we have like both terms on here. Going back here, where is the group question? the group of sites. So it says select group, but it is really talking about the site categories. So I'm going to head on over to clinical sites, search sites, just to show you guys what those categories actually look like. So if you are on the search sites page, you will see on this grid here, there is a site category. And so that's how you know if you have any site categories set up, and you can see those kind of categories assigned to each of the sites. If we go ahead and select a site and go into edit information, and once we scroll all the way to the other configuration section, the category shows up for us here. So this is where you assign a category to a site or, unassign a category. But building this list, you'll have to contact support to get those added. And then once they're in, you can easily assign those categories to a site. Yeah, my sample or list of category options is bizarre, I know, but that's the group question here. You also get to set a due date. So again, that's that kind of, we would like to hear by this particular date. If you would like to set that up, you set that to yes, set that date up there. Display batch or class name to the site on the slot request page. This is going to be on the schedule. So when the site is looking at your full schedule of information, let me see if I can find the site view really quick here. When your site is looking at the schedule, the cohort name appears here at the bottom. So if you are happy with that being shared, or if you would not want that to be shared, you can always say no, just to not share those details with the site. You then have the question select setting to be shown to site. So by default, it's going to be all settings, but this is where you get to kind of, again, filter what your sites will see. So let's say that some of your particular rotations are outpatient only. Maybe you have a rotation that's, or maybe it's only like one or like a few settings that you want to ensure your students get placed in. So if you would like to do that, then session sequence settings is for you. So when we go into placements by session, and we go into session setup of a particular session here, we'll then select session sequences. And then here I'm going to click on this pencil icon. And here is where I can say associate a setting with this sequence. So if I know for this rotation, we only want it to be inpatient, we can select that group of settings. And on the slot request, you can then say session sequence. That way, depending on all of your sessions and what you've set up for each of them, your sites will only see those selected settings. So it's super important if you are interested in using this to make sure that at least one setting is selected. Otherwise, if nothing is selected, then the site would not be able to offer slots for that session. So that's that second option, session sequence settings. You can also go with site settings. This is going to be based off of the site profile itself. So let's say you would like to use site settings. So that means that a site would only be able to offer setting or slots for settings that they have kind of been checked off for. So here on the site profile, I'm going to go over to settings. And this particular site only has this one setting selected. So if we go with that option, when this site goes and offers slots, this is all they would be able to offer you. So if you plan to use this particular option, just make sure that your site information is kind of up to date. Otherwise, they may not be able to offer slots. You can also create your own custom list. So if you'd like to just kind of build your own list of settings from what you already have and just kind of pick and choose, you can do that as well. But we're going to go with all settings here. And lastly here, we have customize your site response options. So this is what your sites will see when they are looking at the slot request. So the default options here are offer slot, maybe later, and no offered slot. But if you'd like to change that verbiage, you definitely can. So let's say I'm not happy with the first option. I'll go ahead and select this and say, this is what I'd like to change it to. I'd like it to just say yes. So I'd go ahead and do that, and that will then update the verbiage that the site would see on their view there. All right. Not seeing any additional questions. So we're going to keep moving here. The slot request preference section is just to kind of gauge and for Exact to know, kind of know what our programs are doing. So this will just be some questions about whether you will be sending out an update site information email this year, if you'll be participating in the slot request process, and just a good contact in case our team does need to reach out to you regarding the slot request, so we can, have up-to-date information. So these are just kind of some survey questions, whether you will be participating and who we can reach out to. Not very difficult there. But once you're all done with that first section, then we'll go ahead and click Save and Next. And this is just letting me know that I am changing my response options. All right, and so here we have our session selection. So if you have already created your sessions previously, this will be a super easy step. You'll just go through the list, click through, select the options. If you have not created them yet, you can always use a previous session as a placeholder and then come back once you've added those sessions, select them here. But otherwise, you can kind of use those here and then move along to the next section. All right, then we get to the email configuration section. So by default, your slot request email will be sent out, but you are able to customize the content of the email, and you can do that by clicking on Configure Email. So this is where you'll review your subject line, you'll review the body of the email to make sure the content is still relevant and accurate. You can, of course, CC blind copy users if you'd like. Just know that however many emails go out, they will receive the same number of emails in their inbox, which may be a lot. The reply to email address is very helpful. So in our system, when you send out an email, a user can respond to the email and it goes to one designated person, but it's just one. So if you do have multiple people that you'd like to kind of be in the know of these replies, you can always enter in multiple email addresses here so that you all get a notification if a site were to respond to this email, back with questions or slot offers. The email sender's name will show up. So when these emails go out from support or from Exact, however, if you would like your email to appear a bit more, friendly or more kind of personal, you can add in your name here so that when they see it in their inbox, it doesn't actually say Exact, but it says, John Smith sent this email. So just making it a little more personal so that when they open that email up, they know it's from you. You can upload here your attachments. So if you have a paper slot request form you'd like to add, our standard template does mention a paper form. So if you are using our standard email template, definitely recommend you upload your paper slot request form or update the language, of course, but you'll want to upload that here. So that way when your email is sent, that paper slot or any type of attachment is included to that email at the time of sending. Once you're all done with your changes, you're going to want to click Save, and that'll save your email. You'll also have a list of optional emails down below here. So the update site information we covered in detail in our last webinar. But again, this is going to be an email that goes out before March 1st, letting your sites know like, hey, this is the information we have on file. Would you like to make any changes to your information? So if you do want to use that, you'll want to definitely select that. But for each of these emails, you can configure them, look at the verbiage, make sure you like the content. You have the slot confirmation reminder. So this is an email if a site were to add slots but not confirm them. This kind of lets them know like, hey, you offered us some slots, but you haven't confirmed them. Do you want to go back and maybe finish that process? So it's the same thing when you're shopping online, you add stuff to your cart and then you leave. Same kind of workflow where it's just kind of wanting to remind them about finishing up that process. So this will go out automatically. And of course, you can maybe CC yourself if you'd like to know about those reminders that are going out. We have a slot acknowledgement from site. So let's say that a site does go ahead, they offer some slots and they've confirmed them. This is going to be the receipt that goes out to the site. So this lets them know like, hey, thank you for offering us slots. This is the summary of the responses. And that table will let them know like the site name, the address, how many they offered, the setting. So this is a very nice email that's just automatically generated as a receipt or a confirmation of what they've offered. And of course, you can CC yourself in these emails. So if you'd like to know what is coming in after your email goes out, so you kind of get an update, this is a very nice way of getting those updates of slots as they trickle in. I do see some questions here. Is there a return email to the site letting them know we have taken the slot? There is a email that you can send out if you would like to let them know like, hey, we will be using this slot. We do have an email for that available. Yes, I believe it is called the, what is that email called? It's in the placement section. Let's see. I believe it's the available slots notification report that lets them know that. I do see another question here. When does the update site information email get pushed out? Great question, Anne. That depends on when you have scheduled your email to be sent out. So this is where you kind of customize the language email. So this is, you know, you'll look at the content, the verbiage, it looks good, it looks great, but you actually schedule emails to be sent by our system in the schedule notification section. So when you're ready, let's say you've reviewed your data, everything looks good, you have nothing left to update, you can schedule these out to go as early as, you know, today, tomorrow, February 1st, whatever date works for you. So depending on when you have scheduled it for, that's when it'll get pushed out. Caitlin's question here, can you notify that you are taking a slot without a student's name? Yes, you are able to do that. So because I have 2 people that have asked so far, I'll kind of quickly go over there just to show you. So I'm going to go over to placements by session. And for my desired session, we'll go into placements. And you have the available slots notification. I think this is the one. So this is where anything that has been offered and has not been associated with a student yet, I can easily go ahead and select my slots. And then here I am going to let them know, hey, this is our standard template, but of course you can tweak it and just say, hey, we plan on using this offer. And of course it'll include the session, the settings, the duration, and let them know that you're planning to use that. Awesome. All right, so moving on to the other optional emails you have available. So both of these next ones are going to be for those that request to be contacted at a later time. So if the site receives your email, they open that up and they realize I don't know yet what I can offer, maybe later, they can then say, please contact me, I don't know, in August. I can let you know in August. So once they give you a date, you have an option to send out either an automated email that is sent to you as the program, letting you know like, hey, this site, sorry about that, folks. I'm trying to get back to the site view here. This particular site, so on July, let's say that the site said on August 1st. So on July 31st, you as the program or whoever you set to receive the email will receive this particular notification letting you know like, hey, you need to follow up with that particular site. So if you'd like to do the contacting, maybe at that point in time, you will need some more specific types of slots for your students. This allows you to kind of get the email yourself, and then you contact the site personally to ask for some slots. If you would just like the email to be sent out, you don't want to worry about it, but you do want to remind those sites that requested to be contacted later, you want that reminder to go out, then you'll choose this last option. So this is going to be an automatic email that is sent to the site. So you don't have to do anything, it'll just go directly to the site. All right, so again, the slot request is included by default, and of course you can customize it. And then all of these other emails are optional. So very, very handy emails that I think would be helpful in terms of managing slots. But again, you decide which one you'd like to utilize. And of course, then you can customize the content of each of those emails. All right. Moving on to the contact information configuration and attachment section. So this is where you again get to customize a little more of what your slot request looks like. So here, would you like to have the site update their information? If you are sending out the update site information, you definitely want this set to yes, but this will allow them to then update any details. So if you would like to do that, you'll set this to yes, and you'll go ahead and check off everything you'd like them to be able to modify. And again, any changes they make do not automatically process. You do have to review them first. So you can rest assured you'll know what has changed before it does in your database. You have some contact information. So that's going to be that first thing we saw in the slot request with the contact's picture and everything. So the sites know who they can reach out to. So you can, of course, add contacts, modify information if you've copied it over. You'll have some attachments. So this is going to be once they click on the link, if you'd like to just share information with them on that link, you can always add those files here. Next, we have two message boxes. So the first one says message, this one says additional information, and all the big difference between the two is just placement. So the message is this first one here, and the additional message is going to be this bottom box here. So just placement is the main difference. So this one will show up at the very, very beginning. This one will show at the bottom, but this is where you'll then curate some just information, whether you want to just reiterate some of the content from your email, say thank you, give them instructions, share information with them through links. All of that can be done in these two here. All right, and then the very last thing on this step here is going to be the instructions. So the instructions show up at the very top of the page. That's going to be this blue bubble here at the top. The system will show you some standard messaging that we have available. I think it's quite a bit. It's like 3 separate bubbles. So if you think that it's a lot, it's taking up a lot of real estate on your slot request, you can, of course, tweak it, build your own set of instructions, and then you'll decide the color of the bubble. You'll decide if it shows up at the top or at the bottom or both top and bottom of the page. and where it's displayed. So when it talks about the slot landing page, it's going to be this page here. The review and confirm is going to be this page here. So if you have any instructions that you'd like to show up on this, second step, you can of course list those there, but that's what that is referring to in terms of those two options for you. All right. Okay. Perfect. I think Shonda was having some audio issues. All right, but that was the contact information configuration and attachment section. So once you're all done with that, we're going to go ahead and click Save Next. And then the very last step here is to review all of your preferences. So you can easily go through, open up each of these boxes, just make sure that what you've selected is all good. Of course, if this is a work in progress, no problem. You can always come back and modify and update information. For example, if all your sessions aren't built yet, not a problem. You'll go ahead and confirm. If you're still working on it, you'll just leave this as no, just kind of letting our system know that it's still a work in progress. And you'll go ahead and click OK, and you'll have your slot request built out. So to make any edits, of course, you'll go back into that pencil icon. You'll also have a few more icons available here that we'll talk about in a second, but I want to quickly go over the site view icon here. So if at any point in time you want to see, as you're crafting your building your slot request configuration, if you want to see what it looks like, the site view does a really nice job of showing you what your sites will see. So this is just the site view. It looks a little bit different, but it shows you exactly the layout, your text that you're including, the information that you're showing, just kind of lets you see that site view quickly as you're building your slot request. All right, and I do have a question here from Stephanie. How do we create a slot request with student interest information? So for that process, that is a great question, actually. So this is where I'm going to quickly refer over to the second handout of our handout section here. I'm going to show my screen. So this is the second handout available. So if you are interested in terms of setting up your slot request, nothing is changed. You'll continue to go through this exact same process that we went through. So you'll build your slot request, you'll decide your preferences, you'll customize your email. The only difference is that you have to contact our support team and let them know of those student preferences. So who is interested in what site, what setting is it for what session? All of those details our support team will take care of for you. So this kind of walks you through, lets you know what your sites will see, what information you need to provide us with, kind of the process. So these are kind of some details here of what you need to provide support with. But it's all technical. Our support team will take care of adding that new page on your slot request based on student interest. So this kind of document walks you through what you need to do, and it's just basically contact support and let them know you'd like to use this feature, and what sites are your students interested in. So that will walk you through that. I do have a question here. Since we plan on using the site categories for the slot requests, would we need to create a completely separate slot request for each of the site categories? Yes. So you would, and this is where the copy or the cloning comes into play, which will save you a ton of time because you can make one and then just copy, and you would just change the categories that you're using. But basically, when you come in here, you'll say, this particular, let's say that for you have a set of categories that you plan to only send out your rotations 1 and 2 for that particular group. You'll say, yes, this is a specific group of sites, and I'm only sending it to group 1 and 2, and they're going to receive, just sessions 1 and 2. So that's how you kind of get to filter their views so that they're only seeing the sessions that they need, or the verbiage that you're sending is different, but you'd have those separate configurations set up. I do see a question here from Shonda. Are there plans to link this with the wish list feature? That was the intent. We hoped to actually make it talk to the wish list so that you had the wish list and it spoke to this section and it all happened magically. But unfortunately, as we progressed into building Prism, that has been a project that has been put on hold. So the feature as it is that support can help and make the feature show up for you on the slot request, but it will not be linked to the wish list process as of now. That's not going to be something we take up since we have Prism now. I have another question here. Will requests still go out to sites without specific student interest as well? Yes. So if you plan to send this to all sites, but maybe you have 5 students who just requested some sites, the email will go out to everyone, but just those 5 sites would see those student names. So that's a nice way of bundling both, general mailings with the student interest. So yes, they will still get the regular slot request. Awesome. All right, we're going to keep going here. All great questions, folks. So let me go ahead and since we just did the configuration, I'm going to skip through all of these slides here. And I think our next portion of our content here is to send emails. So I'm going to go ahead and pop the presentation back up here. So in terms of sending emails, I'm not sure how many of you guys remember, but in the past, on that slot request configuration, we had a question that said, when would you like support to send your emails? And it would say you would pick a date, and our team would take care of the rest. As we have been, introducing Prism and having clients migrate over and trying to make this process really easy enough so that our users are autonomous in terms of using the system and utilizing all of the features it has. So we are actually allowing users to schedule their emails on their own this year. And what that means is that you decide when you're ready to begin this process. Before, we would kind of send a bunch of reminders emails and reach out to you guys a lot, kind of trying to get things down. And some of the programs would get back to us and say, well, our schedule hasn't been finalized yet, or we don't know, some specific details yet, and we're holding off until, a little later. So we really want to kind of let you folks decide what timing works best for you, so you can go in, set up your slot request configuration, review your information, and schedule your emails to be sent by our system whenever you're ready. So you are kind of fully aware of everything that you're doing in the system. You're fully autonomous in utilizing the features that we have to schedule these emails to be sent. So our system will still do the sending. Our support team will still be verifying to ensure that everything goes out as expected. But in terms of you kind of going through and saying, I would like to schedule this email for March 1st at 7 a.m., that is something that you will be doing in the system this year. So we'll kind of show you guys what that process looks like, which has always been available, but hopefully we're going to go through it and it's super easy and it makes complete sense to everyone. So let's walk through this. So again, each program will schedule their emails to be sent on that specific date and time. So again, our system will actually do the sending. You don't have to send each individual one. It's just the scheduling of those emails. So to schedule those emails, we're going to go into slot request and we're going to select schedule notification. So that's going to be that icon there. And you're going to have either 1 or 2 options. If you're sending out the update site information email, you'll have this option. Otherwise, you'll just see slot request. But to schedule that email, you're going to go ahead and click on schedule notification. Once on this page here, you're going to want to, before you start selecting recipients or selecting staff members to receive your email, you want to set this page to show you all records. So as we scroll through this page, let me see if I can scroll down here. you'll see that it displays only 50 records at a time. So if you're scheduling your emails to be sent and you have 350 sites or 350 contacts, you'll only see the first 50. So you want to make sure everyone gets the email. So definitely on this page, scroll down to the bottom and set that show 50 records to show all records. That way, if you are selecting everyone, you are selecting all 300, 500 site staff, however many you have in your database. Another thing is, let's say that you are trying to test this email. So we've always talked about testing emails. This is a nice way for you to kind of look at what your email will, what will your email look like once it's actually sent out. So some people are genuinely curious to see that, or they want to verify to make sure that their email looks good. If you are trying to test an email on this page, just select the first record. Select that first person and then go through the setup process, the next few slides I would go through, just to actually send it out. And that way you can see what your email will look like on that day. All right, so we're going to set this to show all records. Once we do, then we're going to select everyone on this list. Of course, you can click on that drop down. It will give you a quick option there for select all. Once you do, you're going to go ahead and click schedule requests. And then you'll have a wizard or kind of a drawer that opens up with 3 steps to complete this process. Now, on the very first step here, you're going to review the content of your email. Now, whatever you have customized or set up in your configuration, that will show up here for you. So you don't have to kind of really go through and redo your work. It's going to populate for you any last minute changes here. This is what that's here for. You can override recipient's email. So again, if you are testing this just to make sure the email looks good, this is where you would enter in your email address so that you get the email just to see what it looks like. You get to decide when the link expires. So by default, it is showing us 60 days here, but you want to make sure your sites have plenty of time to go through that link and actually offer slot availability. So you can make that 365 days, you can make that 90 days, whatever number works for you. You want to set that number so that your sites have access to the slot request link. And then lastly here, we have the ability to schedule your emails. So this is where that scheduling takes place. So if this is left blank, your email will go out instantly, which is something that you may not want. Maybe you're setting this up this week or in early February. You want that to go out on March 1st. So you're going to go ahead and click on that field there. It will open up a calendar view for you. So once you open up the calendar, you can then navigate to the specific month. You'll select the day. Once you do, it'll ask you the time that you'd like your email to be sent out on. So you'll go ahead and select the time. And it does go down to the minute. So you'll then select the hour and the minute that you'd like your email to be sent out on. And once you do, that will populate in the schedule notification on field. So you'll then see March 1st at midnight, at 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 8 a.m., whatever time you selected. On the second step, the system will go ahead and load your notifications. So it's going to do this in groups or bundles of 25 records at a time. So if you have like 100 sites, you'll see 5 of these, maybe 4 of these. I can't do math, but you'll see those kind of batches kind of just show up. So you'll just wait until the bar reaches 100%. Of course, you can preview a sample of your email here. So let's say you want to see just what your email generally looks like. This is kind of a sample that shows up. So you'll have 3 samples and you can kind of look at each one of those just to make sure that the content again of your email looks good. You like the layout. And if you're happy with your email, then you'll go ahead and send. Now, if you selected a specific future date in step 1, I know this says send, but it's actually schedule. So you'll go ahead and click send. It'll ask you here, are you sure you want to send or schedule 58 emails, however many number of emails you're sending? You'll say yes. And if you have selected a future date, on step 3, you will see emails have been scheduled for this date at this time. If you are sending instantly, then it'll actually start sending out your emails, and as it sends them, it will show you. Actually, I have a screenshot of that here. It will show you who it's sending to and the timestamp. So that's what it will look like if you're sending instantly. I do see another question here. Is the time for the request in our own time zone? Yes. So when you're selecting that time, it is based on your time zone. All right. So that is the process of scheduling or sending these emails. Let's say that you've scheduled your email, but for some reason you need to go back, make some edits to your data, or you'd like to cancel it. Maybe you realize that you forgot to include your attachment. You might need to cancel your scheduled emails, which is very easy to fix. So back on this schedule notification section, you're going to have, again, your slot request option. You can see we already have something scheduled for that date at that time. And on this page here, you're going to go into notification history. So if it does happen that you need to cancel your emails, it will show you here when you went ahead and created or scheduled your emails, for what date did you schedule it. And to cancel these emails, you simply have to dismiss this scheduling. Once you click dismiss, no emails will be sent on that particular time. It'll show up as canceled, as you can see down here below. And you can then reschedule your emails at another time whenever you're ready. All right. Not seeing any other questions here, so we're going to keep on moving along. Okay, so moving on to the next steps. So what happens when your email is sent? What can you review? How do you analyze information? So to analyze your results once they are sent out, your emails, you'll go into slot requests and you're going to go into the Analyze tab. And this is where you can actually view how many emails went out, how many bounced back, who's clicking on your links to view the slot request. All of that information will be here available for you. And you will see if you are sending out the update side information, you'll have a breakdown between the two, so you know the difference of how many emails went out for each. So let's say you had a high bounced email report the first time around, you can then see if it was a little more successful the second time around with the slot request. And as you start to receive slots, that information will populate in the total slots offered report. You'll have a breakdown by session as well, and you'll have a bunch of different reports available to you to review information on here. But again, one of the big reports to look out for is going to be that bounced email report, to see who has not received your email. What was the reason? Was it a typo in the email? Do they have a firewall going on that they might need to fix or address? Or do you have to send that out from your personal email to ensure that they are able to offer slot availability? All right, another way to kind of stay updated or stay informed as to what's happening after your slot request is sent out is going to be your dashboard widgets. So these are all of the possible widgets you may see on your dashboard. So you'll have your call later. So those sites that said, I'm not sure yet, contact me at a later time. Whoever has added slots but hasn't confirmed them, those will show up here. Those first come, first serve, we know that's super important to manage those right away as they come in, so you'll have a widget for that. Any slots for new locations that are not yet on your database will show up here. And then any updates to site information will show up here. And this is where you'll go in, you'll review those changes, approve them so that your information can be up to date. All right, and so up next, in terms of webinars available, we do have on March 7th an upcoming webinar of managing offered slots and following up with sites. So just to review those slots that are coming in, and how do you contact them one more time or a couple of more times after the slot request to ensure you have the most number of slots available for your students. So we're going to go over that on March 7th. All right, and that brings us to the end of this webinar. I'm going to go ahead and just give it a brief pause here to see if anyone has any questions they'd like me to address. I didn't see any more as we were going through the last few slides here, but it looks like everyone is set. I'm not seeing any other questions. All the webinars go on YouTube, right? Yes, they do. I actually I have one to post from last time, but yes, I will be posting this one later today, so you can find them. We actually do have a playlist by year, so you can actually just find the 2023 one, and those will all be listed there for you. I have another question here from Shonda. Is Prism going to replace STEPS? The intent is that Prism encompasses a lot more beyond just STEPS. It has what we know as plans, CCS today. It encompasses a lot more than just STEPS, so it does everything. It's all in one platform. So the idea is that yes, it would, but STEPS is not going away for the foreseeable future. So you still have access to STEPS, and STEPS is going to be around for some time still. But if you're interested to migrate, you definitely can move over to the new version as well. Not seeing any other questions, so I think we're going to go ahead and wrap it up, folks. Give you guys a few minutes back from for your day. Oh wait. Okay. Awesome, Shonda. Well, we will see. I don't know if I'll be there, but our exact team will see you at that CohereX. Wonderful. Okay, that brings us to the end of this webinar, folks. If you have a few minutes, we'd love to hear from you. Stick around once this webinar ends for a short survey to let us know how we're doing, what can be improved, and any additional topics you'd like to see in the future. Have a great rest of your day, everyone. Thank you.